Welcome to Understanding China 1700 to 2000, a data analytic approach, Part 2, Section 1, Who Are We? An Introduction. Part 1 of the course answers the question, who gets what? By comparing educational opportunity, civil service appointment, the distribution of landed wealth, and housing. Part 2 answers this other fundamental question, who are we, by comparing population behavior and associated values. One advantage of comparing population behavior as opposed to housing, wealth, occupation, education, is its fundamental similarity around the world regardless of the state of socioeconomic development. Because at a biological level, we are all human organisms. At the species level, our survival depends on our reproduction. At the individual level, our survival depends on our mortality. So population behavior, in other words, provides similar biological measures of who are we. Of course, we also differ in important ways. At the social level, we are products of our cultural traditions, our local institutions, and our specific histories. And as a result, while survival and reproduction are biologically similar in all societies, we have developed different demographic systems with different patterns of mortality, reproduction, and associated values. However, unlike the comparison of education, civil service, appointment, and wealth in Part 1, the comparison of population and behavior in Part 2 is much more straightforward, much more apple to apple, as opposed to apple to some other kind of fruit. Even in relatively similar societies, after all, education, occupation, and wealth may be rooted in different institutional settings with different implications, while by comparison, birth and death, in spite of different social contexts, are everywhere similar phenomena which can be similarly quantified by life expectancy, by birth rates, by marriage rates, by age. And so in this class, we'll be looking at a variety of quantitative measures comparing societies, especially China, with especially European societies, to some extent North American societies, to answer the motivating question of who are we? In Part 2 of A New History for a New China, we introduce our analytical framework in lectures 1 through 4, followed by 4 motivating questions. First, who survives, which we will cover in lectures 5 through 7. Second, who reproduces, which we will discuss in lectures 8 to 11. Third, who marries, which we will discuss in lectures 12 through 15. And fourth, and at some level probably most interestingly, who cares, which we'll discuss in lectures 16 to 19. We then conclude with lecture 20. We trace the salient legacy of the Chinese demographic system to Chinese behavior today. We show how the contrast of Chinese demographic behavior with population behavior elsewhere, especially Western Europe, especially North America, helps identify important comparative differences in human behavior and also elucidate important comparative differences of how we value life, how we construct our social relations and obligations, how we understand and therefore behave according to who we are.